20. Approval of the agenda. Councillor Majewski.
That the Tuesday, October 13th, 2020 Policies and Priorities Committee meeting agenda be approved as presented.
Seconder. Councillor Norberry. All in favor? Adoption of the minutes, September 21st, 2020 Policies and Priorities Committee meeting minutes. Recommendation, Councillor Norberry.
That the Monday, September 21st, 2020 Policies and Priorities Committee meeting minutes be adopted as presented.
Seconder. Councillor Majewski. All in favor? Carried. Business arising from the minutes? Council? Staff? Okay. Petitions, delegations, Tumbler, UNESCO Global Geopark, Darren Halsted, Manda Maggs, to present to council on the Geopark Interpretive Center. Floor is yours. Welcome.
Okay. Assuming.
Oh, but just 1 second, sorry. Councillor Lehmann has to excuse himself.
Okay,
Sorry.
and that's entirely right, because Bernie there is working at the moment on the Geopark Centre. He's going to be involved as the Red Seal builder. So he's recusing himself from the meeting for that reason. We asked for this matter to be put on the agenda because there are some changes to the plan that has not been formally submitted as a planning application to the district yet. But there are some, there's certainly some need, I think, for us to enlighten the council on where we're going. It's quite long in the tooth, this project, and there have been a number of changes to the plan as it's developed. And just to bring things up to speed, the image that is on the screens at the moment is the plan that was prepared by architects in Vancouver under Manda Maggs' predecessor, Sarah Gamble. I'll cut straight to the chase. That plan was not completely funded in terms of the fundraising, but we were progressing when I became involved in the project, and certainly when Ms. Maggs came involved in the project. The efforts were concentrated upon raising money to put that project into to bring that project to the fore. There are aspects of the project that are further developed, and those are the trailer, which is a mobile outreach exhibit, which is not obviously depicted there. That is also to be complemented by the regional exhibits, which are going to be constructed at the Fort St John Visitor Centre and the Dawson Creek Visitor Centre. They are relatively modest signage in effect that will boost appreciation of the geopark, is the intention. And the trailer, I'll be very brief on this because we hear about the main project aspects, but the trailer is ideally set to be an educational tool with an element of brand recognition and promotion alongside. Those aspects are going well. We have brought today, and I apologise that you've not had this in advance, but there are some printouts we managed to drag together from a document that was received today. It's just to give you an idea as a council that things are actually moving on properly now. And this very grateful to say. Thank you. These are related to the outreach exhibits. So this is the trailer and the regional exhibits that I've just described. They are.
Can we get one to our CAO?
Oh, absolutely.
Just a couple extra to our CAO. We're missing one councillor and mayors.
Yeah, I've got lots of copies, so.
Sorry about that, Darren.
No, thank you very much. So this is just to give you an idea of where things are moving. So this document you're seeing now was prepared by Double Dare Design. It is being, it's complemented by a comprehensive interpretation plan that is now very well advanced. That will be delivered, we believe, in early November. That's to guide the complete programme of interpretation, not just on this project, but in future projects. And that has been prepared by Tumbler Communications out of Saskatchewan. That will be ready fairly soon.
In the next few weeks, I think. So what you're holding, the printout that I just handed out, that's phase one. This is the part that's fully funded, or more or less fully funded, that we've got on the go already. So this part we're already moving on. So the museum has generously provided a trailer that we're going to jointly create exhibits in that will go out. 90% of the contents of the trailer will be educational programming. And then last 10% is going to be pushing people to come back to Tumbler to visit the Geopark. And that trailer will go around, some summer students will run it, probably one from the museum and one from us. And it'll head out to different schools, when COVID allows, and things. But basically that's the plan for this. And then those few regional exhibits that Darren was mentioning will be at the visitor centers, sort of along the Alaska Highway, where they'll be noticed, and again, they'll just point people in this direction.
So the whole plan there is that they will complement that which we really are here to report on today, to hopefully seek some agreement from you as a council. The main centre that will be built across the bay, adjacent to the coast. Now, when Manda Maggs became the executive director of the Geopark, certainly one of the concerns that was expressed, not just from that direction, but also from the building direction as well, from Lehmann, in relation to the construction that you see, the intended construction there. To cut to the chase, it's been decided, at least from our point of view, that that construction would be better in perhaps a less modern guise, with perhaps greater use of wood, trees around the surrounding area, rather than what is, you can see there, is in fact, you can't tell, but what is in fact a glass wall surrounding it, which was neck end of $200,000 really to build, and was ultra modern and probably better use in many respects for catching leaves than, to be frank, not really going to fit in too well with Tumbler Ridge. And I know that certainly my colleague on my right was very firm that that was something that needed to change. Also, that is because of funding issues, very expensive element. We are going to avoid that by the new plan. Now, the plan, I think, has been circulated.
Is it possible to start the slideshow so I can change the slides? It should. You press the little. I think you need to hit the little slideshow button at the bottom so that it, just up and to the right. Going on the red bar, there should be a little right. A couple more icons to the right. That one. I think that's the one. There we go. Perfect. Yeah, so that long wall that you see, we kind of had a bit of an issue design-wise, because that's also where the parking lot is. Presumably that's where a lot of people will be walking in from. So we felt that it was a bit of a barrier as well, as kind of a big expense. The style of the buildings, Bernie, who left, we had a great conversation about how this sort of style of building with the flat roofs was probably pretty appropriate for somewhere like Vancouver. But with the Tumbler Ridge weather and snowfall, maybe not the most practical thing to be doing here. So we kind of revisited that, we talked about it. And it wasn't just coming from Bernie, also our exhibit designers. I'm just gonna move to the next slide, hopefully. Battery's going. If we could just hit the next slide, please, sorry. The power is on, but the... Sorry. Sure. So this is the original floor plan. So this is sort of the bird's eye view of that. So you can see two of these exhibit pods, which were like these long, narrow hallways that would have exhibits that people would walk through. So the idea was to kind of create a circular route for people to go through, which was, you know, a lovely design. But our exhibit designers who created that phase one came to us and said, and they're correct, like, I worked in museums for 10 years, that long, narrow design is really hard to work with. So they said that we could do a much better exhibit if we expanded that, or not expanded, but combined those two floor plans into something that was a little bit more of a squarish configuration. Yeah.
And that will be, in terms of perhaps cost of heating, in terms of ease of installing services and the like, to do that on a single footprint is also something that we deem to be a positive development in terms of the building construction. Just to give you an idea of scale, I'm not sure you can see that on there, so those initial pods were only 30 feet long, but they were 7 feet wide. So my colleague is exactly right. These were incredibly narrow, simply not the best shape. So we did commend to you the new plan, which we'll try to bring up if I can.
Advance it one more. Sorry.
Sorry, thank you.
Yes.
Now this is a plan that we that has been produced. It is the blue segment is in effect the double footprint of the two pods, just in a single footprint now. That will give greater flexibility to the development of the exhibits in the way that they will be laid out. The plan is now to change the design substantially, in the sense now that this will be it's planned to be a log-faced building that will look far less modern and more Tumbler Ridge. Far more attractive, bearing in mind its proximity to the business centre as well. It was felt that would be considerably more in keeping with this town. The other elements that you can see there, there's the caboose at the top in the pinky colour. I'll return to that in a moment. There's on the right hand side, as you look at it, the narrow edge of the configuration. That is the info centre cum washroom, disabled facility washroom, plus a refreshment concession. Certainly the updated thoughts on that from the Geopark end are that we would like to arrange for that to be leased out to somebody to run it, an organisation, a business who may wish to run it. Certainly I know that my colleague and I have talked about the possibility of asking the district to possibly assist with helping us to put that out to tender, in effect encouraging to perhaps come forward for that, because we would like to broaden that out and give it the broadest possible appeal to people in the district who might want to come forward and run that as a business with the machinery that we will be installing, which will give
And just on that note, the Geopark does have a mandate of supporting local business. So we felt that us operating a cafe, bakery, whatever it ends up being, would sort of be in conflict with that. We felt that it was a better opportunity to put that out to the local population and perhaps support a local entrepreneur who maybe is an up-and-coming baker, maybe is a coffee nut, who can provide soup and sandwiches, whatever out of that space. We just think that it's a better opportunity for that. And because this, like Darren had touched on, sort of the configuration here and the wood paneling, which is actually on the next slide, looks like this. Rather than that glass facade that you saw before, the sort of modern metal and glass, to have something more along the lines of this to help preserve those views up into the mountains, which is really what people come here for in Tumbler Ridge. Make it look a little bit more natural and a little bit more smooth transition from matching the visitor center and also going down to the community center, all of that sort of natural use of stone and wood. We felt that would just suit the town of Tumbler Ridge a little bit better stylistically. Yeah, and I think that's all I have to say about that.
Okay. So, no, thank you. So that's the business end of it in terms of the refreshment concession that we would seek to introduce. We still intend to honour assurances that were given to this district council when this matter first was conceptualised. We talked, I understand, I'm talking now was hearsay because of my colleagues in the past who were in this seat, in this role, will have probably had these conversations with the district. But I know we talked about, or there was conversation about the market facility for businesses, farmers, perhaps food producers from even outside to the region, more likely, because of course there aren't that many here, to come in and have a little space within that. We still envisage that that is a possibility, but we now see that probably as being a third phase of the overall construction process. We still intend, subject to any views expressed here, of course, to honour the suggestion we've made that this be a public space as well, the external area. So we have suggested reconfiguring, or was it a stage area for potentially light events. Perhaps we can do something of that nature by moving that in its position. If I could, sorry to ask you to go back to the previous one. This is the one with the new design. Next one. Thank you very much. Nearly.
And just one more click. There we go.
Thanks very much. Thank you. So the yellow area is the suggested new position at the stage that has the effect of maximising the floor space that is there. Everybody will have a better view of it in terms of the fact that it can spread around if there are public events. That anybody, not just the Geopark, but potentially if anybody wants to use that space. So we're suggesting that that is quite a positive change in the plan that we're putting forward for you today. We have, we're currently in a tendering process. We're required by our constitution to tender any work that we've done because of course we're grant funded. One that applies equally to the exhibit construction design. The contracts are in place. Manda has already said the contracts were replaced by Double Dare doing the work on phase 1, the outreach exhibits. They are one of two bidders for the work on the Geo Centre, which is now on there. And at the moment, that bid also includes work on the element I said I would return to, I haven't forgotten, which was the caboose. Caboose, we're now proposing that that would move in terms of the installation, the design and installation of exhibits to phase 3. It would not be done immediately, it would be effectively the exhibit that the caboose would be the exhibit initially in terms of its appearance. It's a heritage piece in itself. And one of the concerns that certainly Manda had in particular was that in terms of when we're trying to raise funds for all of this and bring all that funding in, that was taking up a very substantial portion of the budget to raise, whilst being a relatively small area of the themes that we are required to put forward in our interpretation process, that we're meeting our requirements under the last assessment of Geopark by UNESCO. So we know what we have to put forward in terms of our themes, and that's a relatively small element. The other point there is that the caboose is the exhibits that were in it previously, and technically the caboose itself are more, in a sense, aligned with the ownership, with the role of the museum. And the museum certainly can be perhaps more, certainly I know my colleagues were talking to the museum about this, more likely to be perhaps involved in the future in phase 3 in terms of delivering the exhibitry to go with that. But certainly we will be in a far better position to deliver this project in a relatively good space of time. I'll come to timing in a second. Within a relatively reliable period of time now, if we just put the exhibits in the Geo Centre, which is the element that the Geopark really does need to address.
Sorry, one more point about the caboose actually that we're coming across as sort of a stumbling block is that a lot of the grants that we're applying for, infrastructure grants, require mobility accessibility, and the caboose is absolutely not ready for that. Not even just in terms of putting a ramp up to it, but the doors themselves are only 18 inches wide or something like that. So we need to really do some research. I know it's been done in other places where they've made these vintage cabooses that are all over Canada wheelchair accessible, but we should probably explore that a little bit more. And it is a really good opportunity for us to partner with the museum a little bit more on this, because traditionally there's been a little bit of tension there, and with Xena being fairly new and me being brand new, we just felt that it was a really good project that maybe we can tackle together and do well together. So.
Then really in terms of getting our ducks in order in terms of timing and in terms of money, we have been working very hard over the last couple of months, certainly needed that with Manda, in terms of the budgeting for this, and new funding applications have been submitted. Current funding position for this, that our main funder remains BCRD, Regional Development, BC. They are funding us to the tune of $358,000. We have some grants that we've received from America for specific elements of the project, also from RFD, also from NDI Community Forest, and that's right, and NDIT, who we had 2 grants from them, one substantial one, $248,000 just over. We just rescinded that. The reason for that is that in discussion with NDIT, we know we need more money. The lines of that budget did not meet with the new project plan, and because of that, we could not, in all propriety, claim against that grant. We spoke to the NDIT, they're perfectly happy with the rationale, which is in great detail, and we are submitting an application to them for funding. Further applications, I know of 2 certainly have been submitted, and they are substantial. So timing, I'm conscious number 1 of timing, that 15 minutes is roughly our allotted time in this room. So timing, the outreach exhibits, we still intend to, this has been the position for the last few months at least, intend to get that finished by sometime in the spring to early summer of 2021. It'll be out and about on the streets of the towns in the north of BC. That's the plan. And the funding, as Manda said, is fully in place for that. terms of the Geo Centre, yes, of course, we still need funding to come in to be absolutely assured of succeeding with this on time. But the timings now are these because of the relatively short turnaround timescales on the grants, and I know we're quite confident, certainly the two that we're submitting, the two main ones. We see this now as being a project that will be completed by the end of the summer. So we won't be seeing it completed after the snows have fallen next summer. That's a deliberate plan as well, because we did have, before this plan, this embryonic plan began to develop, we did hope to start building before this autumn really hit. But Bernie has quite rightly said to us that really it's better to do the whole building one, and it remains an element of this, a very attractive element of this project, that the Tumbler Ridge High School are going to assist us in finding 3 apprentices to work on the project. They'll be paid apprentices, paid by the Geopark, to work with Bernie in the construction phase of these projects. Also, final thing I want to say, final thing I want to say is this, that we've also had, and our exhibit designers are very much instrumental in this. We have a very keen eye on using local businesses to work on this project. We are absolutely determined, wherever possible, to work with local businesses. We have already, I know only last week, or 2 weeks ago, the exhibit designers were both here in town for 3 days, and they met with several to be asked to tender. Some have tendered already and bids accepted. They are going to be asked to tender for further elements. So that is really where we're at as far as I'm concerned. What I think we would like out of this meeting, and we're grateful for the arrangements we've made that this application for a hearing has been granted. We would like the council to firstly acknowledge that at least now the Language knows what's going on, and secondly, we would like the council to feel it can support the change of direction and rationale
for but we'd be happy to answer any questions if
come on.
there's any.
Oh, Councillor, have any questions? Councillor?
Thank you, Acting Mayor Macdonald. Thank you both for coming in. I'm really glad to hear the plan, and I'm glad to hear that through funding issues, you're still moving forward and doing the best with what you have to work with. My first, I guess, comment and question is, I see that some of the community garden elements are still in the plans, but I do notice that the blue square is taking over the spot of the proposed rock bench element. Is there any plans to incorporate that rock moving forward, or is it like, first let's get the plans done, then the buildings, then we'll figure out the rocks and benches after? Do you have any plans on that?
So that circular portion that you're seeing there, that seating around the rock, so that was meant to be benches carved by First Nations artists. So we've only just finally identified a few artists that are capable of that kind of work. So that will exist. It will probably just get shifted somewhere around that design. The idea is to also, and I don't know if we touched on this, that little corner between the two buildings, we decided would be a really nice little sheltered patio area where there would probably also be seating accommodated. Because if you grab your coffee or your whatever from that little building, it would just be really nice to have a place where the wind isn't just going to blow you down or make your coffee cold. So there's that as well. And the green areas there, I guess we didn't really touch on that. So the whole point of the glass encasing almost that whole property was for shelter. And that little wall was about 3 or 4 feet high, which we didn't feel was, first of all, it was expensive, but we didn't think was going to provide a whole lot of shelter. So the green areas there are trees that we thought would help preserve those viewpoints to the beautiful mountains, and also provide like multiple access points from each corner. There are some crosswalks and things that I don't know if they were taken into account in the first design. But when you talk about natural walkways for people, because part of this design, the purpose of it is to help funnel those visitors from the visitor center and make them look north and head downtown. So make them start walking in that direction. It provides a corridor to downtown. Then they can access the grocery store, the pharmacy, wherever they're going to go. They can grab their coffee and go for a little walk around downtown. So the whole point is to get them moving across from the visitor center and headed in that direction.
I can say, perhaps I should just speak very quickly to the point that you made, Councillor, about the gardens, because I certainly had meetings. I know my predecessor, Cameron Dreamer, had meetings with the committee involved with the garden. They, I know, are happy with what we have proposed, in the sense that due respect is being directed towards the family involved with the garden. I know that the trees that need to be moved, that they want to move, the plants that need to be moved, have already been moved. I've also, we've had 2 proposals from the 2 Indigenous artists that my friend has alluded to. They have given proposals that would incorporate on one of the benches a plaque to the family as well in relation to the gardens. So I know that that is something that perhaps was felt to assuage their concerns as well. So we're trying to honour that within this new plan. But yes, I'll take your point. Amanda's exactly right. The whole, that there would be just some realignment of where that seating is. But I hope that's satisfactory.
Sorry, thank you. With the new additions of trees, will there be any, like, one of the things about having like the low bench and the glass is that everything could be visible from the street. And my thought, it could be just not a valid one or a rational thought, but what about nighttime visibility in that area? Like, is there, have you thought about that? And like, I'd hate for there to be a shaded area in our downtown core that isn't very visible, or, you know, things can happen.
Yeah. So apparently there are 2 lights already on the front and the back of the caboose that can be utilized as lighting. We could certainly, on that blue portion there, the Geointerpretive Center, we could add some more lighting, some flood lighting, security lighting if you'd like. You know, we've talked to an electrician about some of those provisions already.
Yeah, I know that the electrician we've spoken to, I met him again this week in detail on some of the site, and certainly he's going to be putting in, we're particularly going to be putting in at least 4 circuits in the external area. So they've got things like, it might sound a little twee, but things like the ability to put up seasonal lighting around the caboose and around the trees. So some of the trees could well have that lighting as well. So a lot of thought is going into the attractiveness as well as, I take the point about the security. It had occurred to us, but we can't do more than put lighting in place to allow for that. There will be some gaps in it. You'll see that there are gaps as well in some of it. We have talked about, I know we've just criticised it on one breath, but we have said that there might be the need for small areas with something like a glass partition in some areas. Obviously a lot cheaper because there'll be a lot less of it. That might help with your comment, perhaps, in terms of visibility.
Councillor Kirby?
Thank you, Acting Mayor Krakowka. I'd just like to thank the board for coming up and taking the time to get a product that's going to fit really well with the community. I think the changes are really, really, really impressive. I like the fact that you have a leased space now that supports an entrepreneur to come in and use. Is the bathroom going to be open all year round? Because that's another issue, is you're also coming up with another washroom in the downtown core that's really positive. So
Yeah.
I don't know if it's gonna, I can't remember if we're gonna be all through the year, is it just summer, or is it year round?
At this point, I think our intention is to have it year round. I think that's something that we probably need to talk to Bernie maybe a little bit more about, because you know, the heating element of it is something that hasn't, I don't think, has been discussed in great detail in anything that I've done, but you know, because we're switching this around a little bit more, both of these buildings are no longer, because the original design was actually that they were going to be open to the elements, unheated, very, very rugged in their design, so that you could have people walk through basically year round. The problem with that is that it starts, so especially for the exhibit space, when you start putting in things like touchables or you know, recreations of the dino tracks or fossils or things like that, your costs are, you know, 4 to 5 times what it would be for an interior design. And honestly, I think the product becomes a little bit more basic because you're worried about you know, leaves blowing in, dust caking it. Your cleaning costs increase a lot more, so we moved the design portion actually to an interior design, which reduced the cost of the actual exhibits because we can use things like wood, which is, I think, a lot more attractive for something like this, but also would never have stood up to the previous design. So we're hoping to mitigate that a little bit. So we are actually going to be heating that blue building now as well. And I should mention, because I don't think we touched on this, we are developing a business plan with Community Futures on this. They're working on it now, and I think they're wrapping up very quickly here. Basically, because the district has been kind enough to lease us this land, we had some discussions about sort of the ethics of profiteering off of this land that has been generously gifted to us. So the lease of that space by an entrepreneur, we decided that it might be best to take any proceeds from that. First of all, keep it very affordable so we have someone in there that's going to do it well, but also put that any funds that come out of that towards the maintenance and the insurance for that piece of property. So basically it'll help us manage the ongoing costs of that area as well.
Councillor Wojcicki?
Thank you, Mayor Coca. Thank you very much for your presentation. I missed one of the points that you brought up in phase 2 on the timeline. Can I just get a recap of the timeline on the beginning or the start and the potential finish, as well as for phase 3? And then back to phase 2, how much of the funding do you have in place right now?
Perhaps shall I do the full thing?
Yeah, go ahead.
I can tie it all in.
Sure.
Timelines begin to really run when we get more funding. We've got to pay for the architect to redesign this in a formal format that we can submit to formal planning, sorry to use so many formals, by the district. So that is pressing. That's the main triggering effect now for being able to say the timeline is running. So I've said that there is a short turnaround on the grant applications that are going forward. Those grant applications are primarily related to the cost of the exhibits. The exhibits are a substantial cost. We already have in excess of $100,000 for the building work on the Geocentre. Some work is being done, it starts next week, on the outside of the caboose. That's good as well already. That's just a weld, make it weather tight. So what I'm saying is the timelines are running already, things are already happening. We can't yet give the formal instruction to the exhibit planners to get on with planning because they're the most expensive part of the project. They are also waiting. So those are the two areas. We don't yet have the money for the architect to do their work. And we don't yet have the money for the exhibit plans to get started.
And we can't even award those tenders until the grant applications come in or they become ineligible costs. So we really have to wait on the grants. If we start any work or award any construction tenders right now, that all becomes ineligible and those grants aren't going to be awarded to us.
I've got to stress that this, as I said at the very beginning of my comment, was not, and no criticism of anybody at all about this, but the fact is that this project was not properly funded. Certainly not casting blame anywhere at all. I mean that. But when we came in, it was not funded. There was not sufficient funding on this project to carry it through. So it's not that we've slipped back. We're trying to take it forward in a meaningful way that will actually succeed. So now we've managed to identify, for instance, this whole project was initially going to involve Northern Lights College, who are still working with us on the architects, but they were going to build off-site. So the costs all changed when we had to come back to build commercially or semi-commercial within Tumbler Ridge. So you can see where the elements began to change. We had to change with it. We had to do something about this. So it was never funded in the original format. So when the costs start to rise because of the commercial elements of the building here, the problems grow. So we've had to tackle that head on and really pull it up by its bootstraps as a project and take it forward. So don't be concerned unduly that the funding isn't yet in place, because the applications that have been submitted are new areas of funding that have only just come on stream related to COVID recovery, particularly in remote areas. Both I know that the applications Manda has made, the second one's about to go.
Yeah, it's not submitted yet,
Not
but
far
it's there. Yeah.
are COVID-related funding. So we're taking advantage of sources that were not available to us. So to answer your question, timing-wise from that, we plan to have the architects' element of their work done certainly before Christmas, because we want to get the planning application in. We want building work on the geocent to begin as the snows melt next spring. That will tie in all that period. Running alongside that simultaneously is the work by either Double Dare or the other company called KEI Space. They're a Vancouver company as well. They're both the exhibit designers who tendered. Whichever one of those gets the award will be working alongside to prepare, so that when the building work is finished by the apprentices and Bernie, he thinks it'll take him between a month and maybe 6 weeks to complete the building work. It's not that long. By the time that's finished, our expectation is that the fabrication of the exhibits will have been completed, ready for install. So that's why I can say that I've got as much confidence as the funding issues can allow me to have, that the timeline I've said, finishing by the end of next summer.
One last question here, just to wrap up here. With these exhibits, are they going to be permanent structures on the building? And have you reached out to the district staff on geotechnical reports and if they're required? And also, and if they are, do you have funding available for that as well, if needed?
Geotechnical reports were prepared on the land initially. They've already been paid for, so they're in place. We do need, obviously, as I've indicated, to get formal final plans prepared. It'll now obviously be on an amended plan, but an architect will be involved in that. We're currently in the throes of discussion about whether we can do that with an amended form of planning, perhaps by off the peg plans, as it were, approved by an architect. But one way or another, it has to come before planning. So that will include surveying. I'm told that the architect will require some surveying work to be done. So that will meet with the requirements that the town planner geotechnical planning is part of our budget. We have a very comprehensive budget now in place that has been worked on tirelessly over the last few months in terms of every single element of the plan. So the applications that my friend is making here are comprehensive in terms of funding. Sorry referring to my friend, I'm actually slipping back into my own legal job. It's horrific. Sorry.
I don't mind being your friend.
Well, I know you are, because that's what we used to have to call it. I just realised what I was doing.
Again, just like Councillor Norbury, I just want to thank you guys for coming. Great presentation. I got a couple questions for you. How many years are left on the lease with the district?
That's a good question.
15 years.
Yeah.
So you got about 10 years, no,
So
12 years left?
12 hours. Yeah.
Just couldn't remember if it was a 50. I know we
Yeah, it's-
talked about a 5, but we were trying to get a longer one, so I'm glad to see it's so long life there left. Total cost of the project?
Total cost is about 1.5 million. It was initially assessed at 1.3, but we've since identified some other costs that we need to take into consideration.
And then what you're looking from council, I know Councillor Kirby sits on as a liaison, but you're looking for support from council in regards to the drawings that we have in front of us?
Just the fact that it's changed so much, we just wanted to keep you guys informed and to offer you the chance to say that you love it or hate it, basically. You know, if you're not in favor, then we need to know now, because we're trying to move. But
I mean, I can't speak for the rest of council, but I think, you know, going back and forth between the two drawings, obviously you guys will find some concerns maybe with the other pods that we're going to be built in regard to our weather and stuff like that. So I think some of the changes, you know, the boards made, yourselves have made. I mean, I fully support. I think it's a great idea for what you guys are doing and thinking of moving ahead. Cafe operation going to third party, I think that's great. I think it's great we're going to use the funds for as well when it comes to that. So hats off to whether it's the board and yourselves, but I'm not sure if we can maybe move this to our regular meeting for council to make a recommendation back to Geopark. Council's good with that? Okay, is there any more questions for the delegation? Perfect. Thank you very much. Your evening. Welcome to Tumbler Ridge. I haven't been over to meet yet, but
thank you.
Manda, welcome to Tumbler Ridge, and Darren, we know we don't see each other, so thanks for coming in.
Thanks very much. Thank you for taking it.
Somebody on the crowd spot.
Yeah.
No, I know.
I didn't find out my jacket. That's exciting.
Yeah. A little off topic. Mr. Beal, can you just check the heat there and see if it's up? Like, we're all freezing up here.
That time of year.
Okay. Feels like you're. Let's get to it.
You still needed Bernie.
Thanks for your time.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you guys so much.
See you. Take care.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much. All right, consent agenda. I'll take a recommendation. Councillor Norbury?
That all items in the October 13th, 2020 consent agenda be moved for information.
Seconder? Councillor Majinski? All in favor? Carried. Any items for the council wishes to bring forward for discussion? I'd like to bring one for sure, and that'll be the letter from Don McPherson. Can I get a seconder? Councillor Norbury? All in favor? Perfect. So I'll start it off. Definitely appreciate the letter. So I've reached out to other mayors and councilors that have been part of the chambers here. Most of them have come and picked up the item from the CAO's office, whether they got called or whatever, but the item you get for being on council, whether it's the 4 years or 2 terms, the gifts change, but they've all said how they've come in and picked them up. Now, that doesn't mean that we can't change it. I just think if council wants to change it, how we hand out the gifts for putting in terms of council, then I think we just gotta bring forward our policy. In a policy that we have now, it doesn't state how it gets handed out, it just states what we get. So, I'm not sure if there's any other council wants to speak to it. Councilor Kirby?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Krakoka. you know, I think it would be nice that once a council member or mayor has finished their terms on council, that they were given their gift in the chambers. I think when you have a mayor that served 18 plus years, I think they deserve that recognition at a meeting. Or I think we should bring the policy back up actually to look at again, because I think it was an oversight here. You know, I can see why he brought it back, and hopefully we can get Don in and we can present it to them.
Yeah, and I think that's what we have to do to change the way we do. We'd have to put the policy back.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. I can't remember the date of the policy I read today from when it was accepted by council, but it's quite old. So if it wants to be changed, we have to bring it back and change it. And I guess that's, if we make changes, then we can present it to Dawn or going forward. I mean, right now we follow the policy that's within the district. And right now it's in staff's hands. No disrespect to staff. I mean, they were mentioned in the letter. Dawn's thanking the staff in the letter. He's definitely holding council accountable. So we definitely thank staff for what they've done. So I want to make sure staff's aware that it's not the blame coming to staff. I think it's council being blamed. I think we should be looking at that policy, and if we decide to make changes as a council, then we make changes then. Councillor?
Yeah, I agree with both of you. I think policy discussion is warranted, and give that option. I think any amount of time that you put on as a mayor or a council member is it's a challenging job, and we should be giving a high regard to the people that put in their service and dedication to helping the community. Give them the option of presenting them something in chambers, I think, is a nice send off.
Somebody want to make a motion to bring that forward? Councilor?
I'll make a motion that we bring forward policy discussion regarding terms of service awards.
Okay, seconder. Councilor Majinski? Any discussion? All in favor? Carried. The only other one I wanted to bring up, and maybe the council doesn't, I'm not trying to trump anybody, but it's the community support for the junior Canadian Rangers. So I'd like to bring that forward for discussion. Councilor Ray, seconder, all in favor? Just to start off, I mean, they're just looking again, they do a lot in our community, not just the junior Rangers, but also the Rangers. And again, they're just looking for the council of the day supports them. I did fill in our CAO, Ms. Thompson, in regards to the Will Hall and how that came about and who's been using it, and the Rangers and the junior Rangers use that. And I think we should just have staff send them back an email stating that, I mean, as long as council still supports it, but obviously the use of the hall, and that's what it's for. And if there's anything else that we can do, either for the Rangers or the Canadian Rangers, just get back in touch with our CAO. Council, okay with that? Yep, I'll make that motion, seconder. Councilor Norberry, discussion? All in favor? Okay. Is there anything else that you guys want to report? Reports, the 7.1 construction waste bins. Report from the Director of Operations and Infrastructure, dated October 13th, 2020, providing information to Council on construction waste bins at the transfer station. Recommendation. Councilor Norberry.
For discussion?
Seconder, Councilor Majinski, all in favor? Okay. You want to start off, Councilor Norberry?
Absolutely. So, going back to our discussion, we looked at the potential costs of having these weigh scales added, and at that time, I saw the merit, but at the same time, it is quite the expense, when we could easily just have a visual inspection and charge per load size, right? Yeah, I mean, I see Chetwynd's taking theirs out. Are they replacing them, or are they just taking them out because they're not needing them anymore?
I actually have to ask Ms. Thompson.
I believe they are, but I'll have Mr. Beal confirm that.
Ms. Thompson, Acting Mayor and Council. My understanding is that they are taking out, as you know, the Chetwynd landfill is going to be using soon. I'm not sure if they're taking out in response to that and putting in another
Councillor Lehmann,
Thank you, Chetwynd landfill is closing?
directed to myself.
Oh.
Not direct, don't direct.
Oh.
Sorry, I just don't want to get into a conversation. Just with
Is
staff.
Chetwynd landfill is closing?
I'm unaware. Ms. Thompson?
Mr. Beal?
Thompson, acting mayor, council. So the regional district, which looks after all solid waste within the region, have deemed the Chetwynd landfill at almost capacity. So my understanding is it's got about 2 years left. Before they run out of capacity, and that will be funneled to Port St. John and Dawson.
Any other questions? So I have a couple, and I apologize to our CEO. I was actually in and throughout these questions, so if it can't be answered tonight, no disrespect to staff, but how many bins are going out either a week or every second? I'm not sure how often we're sending out our waste bins, but I'm curious if we're sending them out weekly or every month, every 2 weeks, and if we are, how many we're sending out? And then the cost that we're paying to have it removed from Tumbler Ridge. And I do apologize to, I meant to ask them earlier so we could have the information, and if we can, if we could just get that later date. More discussion from council. So, to be honest, I mean, my understanding from Ms. Thompson in today is staff's looking for direction. Whether we move this, we can't spend money in the meeting here, so whether we move it forward to our next meeting or that, like, for myself, I have a hard time deciding what to do until I hear back from staff on how much we're shipping out, what the cost is to shipping it out. I mean, when we start talking scales, and then it's the recalibration, building the pad, and all that, there's a big expense there. And is it worth it? Or are we just better off to maybe direct staff to come up with another idea where it's free to our residents to have their address on their driver's license? So they're Tumbler Ridge resident, it's free, and if you're not from Tumbler Ridge, there's a fee. Just like the cars down there, so. Councillor Kirby?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I agree with you. I think we need some more information on that. I know from previous talks, I'm against trying to have staff figure out the weight in the back of a truck or saying this loads 20, this loads 30. I think if we're getting a lot of use out of those bins, I think what the next step would be to go to the scales. But it'd be nice to just see for cost. When something has no cost right now, putting a cost on it, people might not like that, but we've got to recover, and they're getting used, and that's good.
Yeah, I mean, I have noticed what I've done, and I don't take a bunch, but I noticed people are using them. That's why I'm curious how often they go out.
Yeah.
Is there anything else that council would be looking for information from staff on this? If it was to come back at our next meeting, you know, I mentioned 2 items, like how many bins are going out, whether it's weekly or bi-weekly, and then the cost of the takeout. Is there anything else, just so we can get it into a report and we have the information? Councillor Majinski?
Thank you, Acting Mayor. Yeah, if we could maybe even have a report stating how much it's going to cost to put in scales, whether we do get the ones from Chetwynd, and if they are coming out, soon or within the year, and we could have this as part of our budget discussions for this year. But maybe have a report on that, how much it's going to cost for the pad, and then it even states in here that they're searching out a cost per ton, I guess, per individual or whatever on the scale. So be interested to see that as well.
Thompson, you got that? Do you want these in motions? Do you prefer, it's a PNP, but do you prefer this information coming to you as a motion from all of council? Or if you write them all down, if we read them back and make a motion at the end and then vote on it? Or are you good with just some, like, I know I'm fine with the direction from Councilor Majinski, but how would you like that handled?
I'm all right with recording everything the way, I'm writing down all your questions you have so that we are able to answer them in further discussions. I'm okay with just doing it this way rather than having a full motion.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that, and I know that was one discussion we did have today in regards to the scales in Chetwynd. And I'll think, and not trying to put words or take away from stuff, I don't think Chetwynd's sure what they want to get out of those scales yet, but that might be decided in time to get that information back to us. Councillor, you had something?
Well, as much as I would love to see a construction waste bin here, if it's not going to be
cost effective to have it here, then I guess we deal with it. We're gonna have to take it to Bessborough once Chapman shuts down. And I mean, you've got 2 years before they shut down, so that's, you know, you'll be looking at probably year 3 before the skills will even be in. So that's a long time away. I'm just, yeah, I think we need to find out the cost and then see whether or not it's warranted, because at this point, I'm just not sure it's gonna be worthwhile as much as I'd like to see them.
Anything else from council? So, again, that's enough information then, like to come back with it, and whether that's at the next meeting or whatever staff has that prepared. I know could be a concern there with getting the costing from Chetwynd, and maybe I'm wrong, maybe there's already some discussions about that, but if that could just come back at the earliest convenience for staff side, and then can have that discussion. Good with council? Good. Oh, Councilman Majinski?
Sorry, so will these discussions be part of our budget discussions then as well? Or are we gonna find out all this information first and then bring them up forward at another meeting and then vote on it then? See if we're actually gonna go forward and bring it up in the budget discussions?
Yeah, I'll make Thompson. I think if they get the information at any point, I mean, it's gonna have to go into the budget no matter what, but, I mean, it's good to debate it, or we can wait till budget. Ms. Thompson?
I feel at this time we can answer questions as much as we can, and if there are more questions that do come up based on the costs that we are bringing towards, then we can further it in budget discussions as well.
And Councillor Kirby, I just want to mention that, and I think I agree with you. Like, I know I was in and talked to staff, and that, you know, how you charge this gentleman $30, and it's a bunch of drywall. I come in, I got a bunch of insulation, and I pay $30 to do it and get it weight-wise, right? So, I mean, I think you made a good comment when you said that, and I think we asked staff to, if you look back in the background, we asked staff to kind of guesstimate that, and I think that's why it came back, is because staff was having that hard concept of how do you do it, so.
Mr. Beal, do you have anything to add?
Thank you, Ms. Thompson. Acting Mayor Kokoka, Council. I just want to provide some clarity, because we're talking about the bins that are down there. Almost a year ago, the regional district came back and told us that we weren't allowed bulky waste in our transport units. Bulky waste comes in as mattresses, furniture. So in my experience with the community and living here, it's always been into the transport units, and it's always been taken away with the rest of the solid waste. But I was informed what happens when that occurs is that we actually get a increased cost to the district in tipping waste. So that's the reason why there's 2 bins down there, is for the bulky waste. So there is a separation between what we're talking about construction waste and what's down there right now for bulky waste. So the bulky waste bins are there because we are not allowed to incorporate that into our transfer unit, which decreases our tipping fees, which pays for the bins in essence. So the money that we save from those tipping fees is being used to get rid of the bulky waste. So just to provide that clarity, the construction waste bin, there's only 1 right now. We haven't deemed it as construction waste, we deemed it as bulky waste and renovation waste and so forth. So just needed to ensure council is aware that there is a.
That's very good information, because I wasn't aware of that, so I thought that's what they were for, and I thank staff for that. But like, if we have one down there, I mean, there's one that says, I believe it says construction waste or drywall or whatever. Is that being paid separately from the previous comment that Mr. Beal had made? We're talking mattresses going into a bulk bin or a bulk item bin. There is one down there that says, I believe it says construction waste or something. I know it had a drywall sign on it when I was down there. Was that being shipped out separately, and are we paying for that?
Mr. Beal, do you have that information?
Thank you, Ms. Thompson. Councillor, Acting Mayor Kokoka, Council. So yes, we are paying tipping fees for all that waste. So it's all classed as bulky waste, regardless if it's a 2x4 or a couch, it's still classed as the same material.
Any more questions from council, that information? Okay. Thank you to staff. Discussion items. 8.1, Tumbler Food Bank. I'm gonna step out for this one. I'm not sure what's gonna go on. I apologize to Councillor Norbury that I didn't touch base with this afternoon. I was in and talked to Ms. Thompson, so it all depended where you're going with this, if I could be perceived in a conflict with the business I own, but, so maybe you can just enlighten us without getting into it, and then if I feel I'll leave, and I'm gonna ask Mr. Councillor Lehmann to chair, so.
I think I can make a discussion without bringing any conflicts into play. Ultimately, it's just there's an express need by the food bank in that they're not able to receive individual donations from residents this year. So I want to make a discussion on how we as a district can support them more, how we can investigate and support them.
Yeah, well, I guess I was talking to Ms. Thompson. I mean, I think if I feel like I'm going to be in a conflict, I'll step out that time. So, I mean, I just want to make it aware that I own the grocery store. I'm not sure where this conversation is going to go, so I just feel good to step out and let council have the discussion. I apologize, and I apologize, Councilor Norbury, not getting hold of you earlier. But, I mean, there's also 3 other people that can discuss it, so I'll get Councilor Lehmann to chair just because it's your idea, and you guys can move forward. Thanks. Send a picture.
Go ahead, Councillor Norbury.
Thank you, Acting Mayor Lehmann. So the reason why I asked this to be brought up is in discussions with Ronki, the food bank operator, she has expressed to me that their Christmas food bank hamper program is in dire straits this year. Traditionally, mayor and council help them during the mayor's food drives, they call it. But I mean, it's the whole community comes together. And I've seen many of us councilors out there helping. And that's one of the main funders for this program. Another contributor to the Christmas hamper program is the elementary toy drive, and that is also up in the air if it's possible to receive donations. One of the big issues is COVID, right? I mean, that's sort of deciding what one of the big issues is. So I guess to give a little bit of background, the Christmas food hampers, they have breakfast, lunch, dinner, and then they have a toy for the kids under the age of 18. I asked approximately how much these food hampers cost, and the cost varies from $100 to $150. Last year, they provided hampers for $58, and with how the food bank has been operating this year, they're expecting the amount of hampers required to rise to 70, potentially 80. So what I'm hoping for is that I'm hoping that staff can reach out to the food bank to see what they would require in terms of monetary support from council to keep this program operational this year. Because yeah, I mean, it's one thing for me just to say what I've heard. I would like to see if it's the will of council to support the food bank and how much do they need to have a successful Christmas program this year? Because I hate to see families go without on Christmas because of COVID. So yeah, that's all I have to say.
Councillor Brzezinski.
Thank you, Acting Mayor Lehmann. To Councillor Norbury, with the Tumbler Food Bank, do you know if they are receiving skids of food right now and where they are getting the funding to do so?
Go ahead. I'm unaware of that information.
Oh, I mean,
Acting Mayor Lehmann, go ahead.
thank you. Does the district normally give financial support to the food bank? I don't recall. Food drive. Go ahead,
Thank you, Acting Mayor Lehmann. So, Councillor Norbury, is it so we cannot put on food drives anymore? Because I thought I've seen, other communities still doing food drives. So, I mean, there's got to be a way that we can do it. And I think as far as financial support, I don't remember financial support. I know that I think the Good Food Box has support through the community forest. I think this, just the word needs to get out to the community. I think, between ourselves and the residents, we can find a solution to this or find out a way to make it happen.
Yeah, I mean, I looked at the food bank, their website, and they're not holding any restrictions, but this is the information that I received from Mrs. Solomon. So maybe they leave it up to individual food banks. I'm not too sure, but that was information from her in that they aren't or can't receive individual donations from community members.
Councilor Medinski.
Thank you, Acting Mayor Lehmann. Yeah, maybe if we can get maybe a monetary value as donations throughout the community, or even a food drive, maybe we just up the amount of times we do it. Like, I don't know if they do it only in December or if they do them in November as well or October, but maybe we do one every month, all the way up until Christmas for whether it's for food or presents or I don't know exactly how they go about it. If they get a monetary value and then go out and buy things that are in need, or if there's a list of common things that are expected to be popular that year. I'm not too sure how it all works, but maybe if we can have staff reach out to the food bank to see what they would require, if it's a monetary value, and if that's the only case, then maybe go that route and have a discussion in a proper meeting.
Go ahead, Councilor.
That's sort of what I was hoping from this conversation, is to sort of get staff involved and then give us some options, right? To see if there's a workaround with the food bank, if they can somehow take donations, as well as maybe we can do like a money drive or something, right? Yeah, I think it'd be best to get staff at the food bank talking on solutions for the Christmas hamper program.
I think perhaps instead of having a food drive, announce it as a food drive, but you're only taking monetary donations, so that people can, put their money in an envelope instead of putting out a bag full of canned goods. Put up $5 or $10, whatever they want, and then just when the food drive goes by, they just pick up the money and then give it to the food bank. But I think it needs to be advertised. Go ahead.
Thank you, Acting Mayor Lehmann. The Mayor's Economic Task Force, Ronki is on that task force, and maybe that's something that we could put on our agenda and get the information needed before we take it to staff, and just find out what the hurdles are and see how it plays with COVID-19, and then come back to council if at that point if we need any help from council.
That sounds reasonable. I just, I just like to see someone. I just want to see the community not suffer during this time because of COVID, right? If the task force is willing to take that on, I think let's get a little more information, because I've just had preliminary discussions, and it's good to get an official talk.
Check.
Any more discussion?
It's on my to-do list.
the next discussion item is 8.2, naming right policy. I know coming in and talking with staff, they're just looking for some clarification on what we're looking at so that they can start working on a draft or some ideas to bring back to council. Ms. Thompson, you just want to give just a general concept of what staff's looking for?
Thank you. So we have this on our list for a naming rights policy. Of course, everybody knows I'm fairly new. So I just want some direction on it. You know, are we looking at, do we want to put something in that would be like a percentage of a project that would give you naming rights? So if something was at a 50% donation, would it show up, like, is that how you would get naming rights on it? Do you want to do it as a percentage? Do you want something that's going to be in perpetuity? Do you want it, you know, do we want to look into a time frame where it would be 10 years? Or who would be responsible for signage after X amount of time? So there's a lot of unanswered questions that we're just kind of thinking of, that we just need a little more direction for what council wants on it.
Thank you. Council? Councillor Kirby?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Kauka. I think when we brought this up for a report from staff, there, you know, I was at a conference, and there is money to be made for the community by naming rights. So we'll use two projects right now. We have the TRMBA, we have the pump track, we have the new festival or park area there. So if you can get a sponsorship or a naming right there, that money can go back into the organizations. This council has a lot of money going out for fees for service. So any kind of money that we can generate through naming rights that can go back into operations for these groups, that would be kind of like missing the boat on that. And that's where, you know, we haven't done that as a council in the past, so it's new to us too. So I guess those are the things we're looking at. If you have a naming right to the pump track, is that for life or is that for so many years if it's a percentage of the actual bill? Are we going into, you know, we've got the ball diamonds, we've got the arena, you know. Are we going for those bigger things? I don't know, the community center could have a naming right on it if we wanted, if it's gonna generate money for user groups. I think it's such a large scope.
I have Councillor Lehmann and Councillor Majinski.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I think along with this naming rights, it's also advertising, and I think even like you take the golf course, we used to have signs on every hole that companies or people could sponsor for that year, and it could be the same thing. I mean, you do the same thing in the curling club and in the skating rink, and every year you pay a certain amount to be able to advertise your business. And it's the same thing if you're going to donate a large sum of money to, you know, either the pump track or whatever it may be, the festival grounds. I think you almost have to look at it sort of case by case, depending on how much money they're going to be putting in. If somebody puts in $50,000, I mean, you got to look at a long-term contract for something like that, so that you maybe give them 10 years, or, you know, whoever's going to give you that money, ask them what they're looking for. I think that's kind of I don't know if you can have a blanket policy and say, okay, that's going to be, you know, X amount of dollars is 5 years. And I think it'll depend on where it is. It's sort of a case by case. But I think it's going to depend on who the donors are, or who the people that are paying.
Councillor Majinski?
Thank you, Acting Mayor Kauka. I only have one concern, or it's not, well, I don't know if it's a concern, but maybe a question. Is there's two options for people out there to put their business and promote their business out at the ball diamonds or at the curling rink or the hockey arena. They're already in place and there, so they pay the $500, get the sign up, advertise for indefinitely, and then the money that the district generates from that goes back into whatever organization they would like to put it towards. But this naming rights policy came about because two of these groups have projects on the go that they're looking to have naming rights for large amounts of money, so that it can help them actually complete their projects. So for somebody to put their sign up when they drive into their community for $500 is pretty good value, opposed to paying $50,000 to fully fund a project that's not even started or completed. Because we could easily go and name all of the playgrounds in and around our community. We could put signage up on the bear walks. We could do. There's a lot to do there to promote businesses or help out with advertising and get other business names out there. But there's got to be a different way to look at it when it comes to them fully funding or partially funding a very large project. So I think if it's going to be a monetary value of $50,000, we say, is that going to be lifetime? Is it going to be indefinitely? Like, it can't be just a 5-year thing, and then like, oh no, we're going to change it up or whatever, right? So we got to look at those as concerns, and whether we do that, will that money go to the group to finish their project or for potential projects down the road? And what happens if, say, a group decides to dissolve? Where does that money come from, and where does it go to after that? There are some potential concerns there too, right? So say TR Days doesn't renew their lease, and then there's people that are paying for the pergola or the stage, and they have a 5-year, advertising lease agreement, and they aren't there anymore, and it's not being used for that anymore for events. So there are a couple of questions I have there. So,
Councillor Calk and then Councillor Murray. So I kind of agree with Councillor Majinski in regards to that. I think that's why staff's going to have a little bit of input from council when they come back with some ideas. But I do believe, I think Councillor Curry mentioned it, to me, if it's the pump track or the fairgrounds are the two items thrown out there right now, because yeah, they do have things on the go, that the money, if it's $30,000 they're going to save for a sign at the stage at TRDAs or a sign for the pump track, that should go back to that organization. If that's to finish their project or to move on to a different project that they're doing, that's up to them. That's not to us to say, oh, okay, well, you get the 30 grand because of the naming right policy that came to the district, so does I spend it? That's up to the organization. I think it's just a way of feeding back into those organizations by doing naming rights. And whether it's the percentages that Ms. Thompson has mentioned, that when you figure out the total budget cost, and if we say, if somebody funds 30% to 50%, it's a 15-year naming right policy. And then you go lower after that. I think that's some ideas maybe to come back from staff. And you mentioned in regards to the $500 at the ice rink and at the ball diamonds, that's yearly. That's not a one-time payment, that's a yearly payment that a company will pay. So over time, there's some signs that have been there probably for, I don't know, I think I've been here 15, 14 years. So if you add up $500 for 14 years, a lot of money for a sign that goes up. So, okay, so I got Councillor Norbury and then Councillor Majinski.
no, that's a great point.
Councillor, give me 2 seconds, I'll go right back to you. Sorry.
Oh, thank you. I think both yourself and Councillor Majinski sort of got to the point that I was wanting to make as well, and that we should look to the in-ice advertising as a template for this, in that this can be a tool for organizations to fund the initial creation of their projects. My thought would be it needs to be either I think it needs to be a sizable amount. Do we need to put a percentage on a total project? That's a good idea, or a minimum amount would be a good idea as well, because projects are different, right? I mean, if somebody provides $10,000 to a $30,000 project, well, that's a higher percentage than, say, $30,000 for $100,000. Right? So I don't know where that line should be, but I think it should be significant. And didn't we have discussions about this could lead to funding opportunities for the district and potentially offering naming rights in existing areas, right? I think if it's forever, you should have some options there for part-time, as well as it's just known as something Memorial Park or something, right? Because I think that is an attractive option for some people to say, hey, here's a ton of money, it's going to be named, Prairie Park for ever, right? So that's my comments.
Councillor Majewski?
Thank you, Acting Mayor. Yeah, and one that comes to mind is the skate park is not going anywhere anytime soon. And kids love that place, you know, it could be an iconic place to have name rights for. But we also helped with the pump track for a lot of money, so I don't think there's anybody that would be willing to match that or have the 50% of that. Same with TRDs. A lot of their funding is from NDIT, and they are putting up a lot of money there. And are they going to get the naming rights? Probably not, because they're just a funder, and that's part of how they got that grant. So a lot of these grants, that could be a bit of a touchy subject there, I believe, having some of these people, unless they're willing to put in the money to say, yeah, we want our name on there, but you got to come up with the other half.
So like myself and then Councillor Lehmann. So my thing on that, like NDIT and stuff, that's who they're up there. They are a funding body. And to me, I can't speak on behalf of NDIT, but when they see organizations go out and do something like this, it's a funding body. Like, I mean, when they come back to NDIT and say, no, we're doing another project, we're able to raise these funds because the district came up with a naming right policy, so we got the money for that, but we're short by this much. I think that looks good anytime you go after grants. And I could be wrong on that, but to me it would look good when you go after other grants or certain grants, when it's through NDIT, they want to see that you've done some work as an organization, which, I mean, the two organizations we keep talking about are the TRDs and the Tumbler Mountain Bike Association. And to me, those two organizations have done a lot. There's other ones too. I mean, the Community Forest is one of them, and I know it's a shareholder company, but you know, they built a trail on the Vixen, and that was the benefit of the board that was of that day. I mean, the amount of work that went into there and the amount of material that's over there. To me, they didn't even put anything up there that was sponsored by them or donated by them. And to me, that's a huge asset in our community. Councillor Kirby mentioned like the rec center. So I don't know what a Canada Event Center, how that contract all worked out, but there's a huge corporation that is, and I don't know if it's for lifetime of the building. I don't believe it's probably a certain amount of years. And I think, you know, when talking with Ms. Thompson, when she says about, you know, percents of how much you give to the total cost, that might be an idea to look at, have staff have that as one of the ideas, is coming back and if somebody gets 20% of the cost of the pump track or one of your downhill trails and are able to give you naming it downhill black and it's 10,000 but it's good for 5 years, you might see a lot of residents that want to do that for the family name that have lived here for a long time or that just to represent their family that have been to Tumbler. So. Councillor Lee.
Yeah, in regards to NDIT and Community Forest, there's nothing wrong with when you complete one of these projects, you put a plaque up and, you know, thanking the different contributors to these projects. It's the same as the pool. You have the family names there on tiles. All the people that donated, or most of the people that donated, you see their tiles up on the wall. And I mean, that's maybe something we don't do enough of, because I mean, there's a lot of money donated, but there seems to be a lack of recognition. It's the same with we talk about volunteers. It's no different. I mean, and it's not a big deal to put up a plaque that says thank you to NDIT or to Community Forest. I think that we should be looking at more of that.
Councillor.
Thank you, Acting Mayor Recalca. One of the things that I keep thinking about is how do we justly charge for these things, right? Like we're throwing out numbers, like maybe 10,000 is enough, maybe 30, maybe 50, right? It really depends on the size of the project, you know? Like, is there some value in determining a value of square foot of real estate, so to speak? An example is if you're contributing to a massive project, it sort of goes back to my comments before, you know, the value would change, right? So what I mean is, like, there's a $30,000 project that's, you know, a small plot of land, and you only need to give $5,000 to have it named so-and-so park or so-and-so project, versus say like the community center, which is a massive square footage, so you essentially need to scale it up. And it may be, maybe I'm thinking too complicated, but that could be an option in terms of how we evaluate what the naming rights is valued at. I think it does change, right? A bigger area, like a ball diamond, it should cost more to have a naming right for a ball diamond than it would be for, a 20 by 20 hut, right?
Ms. Thompson, I'm just curious if you get enough information in regards to kind of, so really and truly, it's a draft policy. It's going to come back, obviously council still have a lot of input, and I'm not dependent on any council, I would still debate this, but so I want to make sure staff's getting some of the points that they were looking for. So it was added because it was an item that we talked previously. And it was just something that Ms. Thompson obviously caught on this thing to bring it back. So I just want to make sure we're giving them enough information for them to kind of, have some wheels turning and come back with a draft where we can still, we can still make changes, we can still debate it, we might not like it, doesn't mean it goes through, right? So I think it just gives us another option when staff brings that back in a little bit of a draft policy that we can make changes if we didn't like what we see. Just wanted to make sure she was getting enough information from us. But Councillor Majinski and John?
Nope, that was good. I think you summarized that up there, yeah.
So anything else from council? So I'm going to apologize to Councillor Nover and Councillor Kirby. I didn't get a chance to talk to you before the meeting. I did talk to Councillor Lehmann and Councillor Majinski. It's not on the agenda, so no council business here. But I'm pretty sure most of you are aware, should be aware now that the diagnostic and treatment facility has been closed at 5 p.m. today until 9 a.m. tomorrow morning. Not everybody's on Facebook, not everybody watches on the live stream, but first of all, we want to thank the doctors that are in town and the nurses, lab techs and x-ray techs. But Mayor Bertrand received a call probably about 2:25, I would think, from Angela from Northern Health to let him know that due to some staffing shortages, they would not be able to man our emergency tonight from 5 p.m. till 9 a.m. So I know he's been working hard since that phone call. He's reached out to Angela a few times. I want to thank Ms. Thompson. She's also reached out to Angela and left some messages just to find out how we can again get involved. It's not about a money thing, but is there any other ideas that Northern Health has, or even staff in the facility, where we can be more aware instead of 2.5 hours before they close the facility? Ms. Thompson also reached out to BC Ambulance just to kind of touch base with them, make sure they had some kind of plan in place if there's multiple transfers coming out of Tumbler tonight. I hope we have no issues tonight in Tumbler Ridge, no emergencies or anything, but I think council should be aware of that. I think our residents should understand that this council, I can't speak for you, but I know kind of how we've debated it, that it is a priority to us, the healthcare at Tumbler Ridge. Not only emergency, but our doctors, our nurses, and our paramedics. So I just want to make sure the council is aware of that, as well as the public. Also want to reach out and thank the volunteer fire department tonight, because seriously, if they do get busy, we know we're putting pressure on a bunch of volunteers, men and ladies, that give up their time to volunteer on our fire department. So I want to thank them on behalf of council and staff to keep the community safe, and same to BC Ambulance, because they're here to help us as well. So yeah, Councillor Majinski.
Thank you for bringing that up, Councillor Kokoka. Do we have a plan in place, so if something like this does happen again, what are the lines and the structure of how do we go about this? Do we let the fire department know? Do we let our local paper know? Get on Facebook, we get on our own district website. Do we let all of the community groups know? How does this all come down the line so that if there is an issue and we don't have the healthcare we need, or we need to have somebody expedited out of town to the next nearest town for emergencies, how do we go about that? And do we notify, say, like TR Cares, and who are all these individuals that we have to get this information out to right away?
Yeah, so I know Northern Health, obviously called the mayor, reached out to me. I'm not sure how soon after he received the call. So I was in already talking to Ms. Thompson in regards to tonight's meeting. So we had a chat with Keith there. She reached out to Angela. We chatted about how we should advise our fire department. Reached out to BCM to see what their plans, if they had plans in place. I know the Tumbler Ridge News has already picked it up. Ridge Lines has already picked up the story. It's all over Facebook. So, social media is the go-to, not always though, because not everybody goes onto Facebook, right? So some people do just watch us live. I think it's something that we can ask the mayor. Maybe we should have sent an email to council, and I'll take the blame for that. The mayor's out of town, and that was my role. So I was here till just about 4 o'clock, I guess, after 4. So again, I apologize, I probably should have sent an email to council. I know Ms. Thompson again reached out to Dustin Curry, our fire chief. Mr. Curry was reaching out to all the members of the volunteer fire department to make sure that they're aware that, you know, there could be a bit more stress load put on them if it gets busy. Letting our residents know, I mean, Northern Health put it on their website and on their Facebook page. TR Cares, I mean, they're not going to transport. I mean, that's what the emphasis for. So I don't know if Ms. Thompson can think of anything else that we could have done today to advise the public.
At this time, I think, you know, finding more information so that we can go forward on it now. I mean, I was unaware that this has happened more than tonight. You know, we didn't have a whole lot of time to prepare, or, you know, I made a few phone calls and finding out more information. So we can do something going forward, saying this is how we're going to do it. Once I speak with Northern Health, and I can bring that back to council and talk with Fire Chief Curry on what he needs for his department as well.
So again, I'll apologize to council that the email didn't go to us. Like I said, that was probably myself that should have done. Keith was out of town. So again, I apologize for that part of it. I think we can, you know, wait for Ms. Thompson to get some more information, but you know, it comes down to Northern Health and us sharing it and talking about it. Obviously, the fire department's involved, but I just don't know if there's anybody else that we could have reached out to. I could be wrong. Councillor.
Thank you. And I think, you know, it'd be great to hear about these things, but ultimately it's Northern Health's responsibility to let people know. I think, you know, we should let the community know. But anyways, it's my thoughts is that we did put in something into place where we offered like incentives to bring in like, you know, nurses. Is that available for times like this, or is it only for extended stretches? Because that might be an opportunity, at least a discussion for us to have if that's something we want to see. Yeah, so I'm not sure if it can be used for instances like that.
Yeah, I think that was, again, I think we first said it was a one-time thing, then we brought it and did it a second time, but I think that was when it was long stretches. So I don't think that, this wasn't a planned outage. I think, I mean, not sure how much I should say, but I think it was the last one. It's on, I think it's on Northern Health's website. If it's not, I mean, get back to me, but it was the last minute call in by a staff member. So we can't control sickness, so, and I think they were just shorthanded in regards to some courses and stuff some other nurses were on. So it definitely was you know, it definitely came up unannounced to them as well. So I don't think offering, Councilor Murray, but I think having a fund there, I don't think we would have been able to fill it. They reached out to, I believe Keith said they reached out to their other partners, and that would have been a chat one at Dawes Creek looking for a nurse, but nobody was available. I think you know, I think last time we said that it would be the last time we put money in, but we were looking for follow-up, and I don't think, I'll blame myself, I don't think we followed up on that. It happened, we gave the funds, they brought in a temp nurse, it went over really well over there, and we had coverage, and then we never went back to it. We never went back and stuff, and I think Ms. Thompson kind of mentioned that, but let her reach out to Northern Health once Angela calls her back, and just see there's different steps that we can take and be notified earlier. Nobody wants to see our clinic not being able to take patients in a merge through one night. I think it's out there. Question and answer period. I'm not sure if you're aware, I'm not sure if you're filled in, but doing the no gallery, we allow people to email the CAO questions. I'm not sure, so I apologize if you're aware of that. So, yeah, so with our intern, that's how we did it. If residents had questions, they could email the CAO the day of or before with questions. And if you had those questions, you would ask them at tonight's meeting.
I have none.
Okay, so. Call for adjournment. Recommendation, Councillor Lehmann.
I make a motion that Tuesday, October 13th, 2020 Policies and Priorities Committee meeting be adjourned.
Seconder. Councillor Doug, seconds. All in favor? Sorry, Councillor. Adjourn. Sorry, Councillor, just didn't see your hand up quick enough.
Thank you, everybody.
So, I know what Bryce. Would council prefer that an email directly immediately, whether it's from staff or from the mayor, in regards to that? Like, I mean, we should have something that council's happy with. And I'll take the blame today.